our coordinator for the Student Leadership Program's Knowledge Community, and I welcome you today to a unique webinar that we'll be having, actually a conversation with Ms. Christine Sparks, with Ms. Christine Simmons, who is the president and COO of the LA Sparks, but I'm sure she has her own spark that she's going to share with us today.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sure of it after just the 10 minutes speaking to her this afternoon. It's also a unique webinar because I'll be co-hosting with Joshua Fredenberg, who is the chair of the Spotlight Awards series. So he and I will be working as a tag team on this, and I think it'll be a really interesting format for us. It'll be a lot of fun, and I think this is going to be great information to bring back to your career offices, to your vice presidents, to learn a little bit more about what folks like Ms. Simmons need in students when they're coming out of college, trying to get jobs. What was her journey like? So she is kind enough today to share some of those experiences with us. But before we get started, I do want to provide you with some information about the SLPKC. The mission of the Knowledge Community is to serve as a resource for higher education professionals who have a professional interest in young adults, that is our college students, in their leadership training, in their education, and their development. These webinars, which I've been doing for almost a year now, really speak to how we can share best practices around the country, how we can bring ideas, or even some of the speakers who come to the webinar series back to our schools to inspire and motivate not only us, but our students. And I also want to share some upcoming events. I think a lot of you already know that the NASA conference is March 21st through the 25th in good old New Orleans, and I'm very excited about that. I know those of us in the Northeast are very excited to get out of the Northeast for a couple of days. It is snowing really badly here in New York City, and so I hope that we can meet some of the folks that we have served here on the webinar series. Secondly, we have already our April webinar scheduled, and I invite you to attend and register. It is on emotionally intelligent leadership, an engaging model for student leadership development. And it will be on Monday, April 13th at 12 p.m. The website, the Twitter account, the Facebook account, they all have the link that you'll need to register for that event. And finally, the 6th Annual Circle of Change Leadership Conference is hosted Friday, November 20th, so save the date. It's on the West Coast, I believe. Josh, is that correct?
Yeah, it's on the West Coast. Yep, it's on the West Coast.
It's on the West Coast, so it starts to get cold again in the Northeast in November. If you want to get out of that quicker, you can go to the West Coast and enjoy this conference. So now I want to introduce Ms. Christine Simmons. She is the president and COO of the LA Sparks, a WNBA team. Ms. Simmons is a graduate of UCLA and is currently the vice chair of the UCLA Alumni Association. She has worked as the executive VP for Magic Johnson Enterprises and has also had senior level positions with the Walt Disney Company and NBC Universal. Among her honors and awards are the 2013 Top 25 Women of Power Impacting Diversity, the 2012 UCLA Black Alumni Association Alumnus of the Year, and the 2010 National Association of Professional Women Women of the Year. In this webinar, Ms. Simmons will be asked to provide her insight and advice about what she believes students need as they embark on their career journeys. She will share about her own experiences in the corporate world as a woman and provide us with insights that we can then share with our own student leaders. With that, I'm going to introduce Joshua, who's my co-host today, and he will begin the interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. It's a pleasure to be here. Also, thank you again, Christine, for sharing your wisdom with us and taking the time to be with us today. We're greatly appreciative because we know you have a busy schedule. So I just wanted to thank you so much in advance. So I guess the first question I think, which is a great question I want to ask you is basically, what is your journey? How did you get to where you are today? what was how did this all transpire?
It's, it's so funny that, and thank you, first of all, for having me, and thank you both for the work that you're doing with this organization and student leaders, because that is exactly how I got here. My journey really began when I stepped on campus at UCLA, and one of my first memories was there was a hunger strike going on to save the Chicano Study Center, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is college. Okay, I wasn't quite ready for this. But it was amazing the power that just one man who was doing this hunger strike had, and he did actually save the Chicano Study Center there at UCLA. I immediately began to get involved in student leadership and organizations on campus. I don't know, maybe too involved. Otherwise, I may have been Dr. Simmons, because I was actually pre-med at UCLA. And wow. Had I been maybe studying a little bit more than organizing, who knows? I might have been an ER doc right now. But no regrets, all lessons learned. But the slide that you see there was when I did accept the Black Alumni Award, and my mentors were in the room, and whether it was at the time Black Free Health or Black Hypertension, going into the community and giving high blood pressure screenings, whether it was African brothers and sisters, and I was going into Watts and tutoring kids in the projects there, or we have a counseling program on campus. It's a peer counseling program, and it's pretty much run by the students. There's only one paid full-time not faculty, but staff member there, and it's targeted to all the different ethnic communities. And so I was director of the academic supports program, so I actually reported to students. And there I learned all those different organizations taught me how to budget. They taught me how to write proposals and ask for money. They taught me how to recruit, and those are all the skills I use today. So I have to recruit people to come to a game. With my marketing campaigns, I have to write proposals to ask sponsors for money, so that way you see all those amazing brands and activations in arena when you go to the basketball games. I have to work with the community to make sure that people understand that we're embedded in that community. So literally my activism as a student leader got me to where I am today, and I would not be here without it. That skill set was I'm not going to say far more valuable than my UCLA degree, because it does hold significant weight, but my UCLA degree is in physiological science, so I'm not really using my biochem and my OChem too much, but I am using the skill sets that I used in those organizations, and so in a very roundabout way, I ended up here. And then the content of it, so because I was constantly giving a voice to those who were disenfranchised or underserved, I found my way to supplier diversity, which, much like HR, when they're looking for diversity in the talent and workforce, when corporations are looking to make big purchases and hire businesses and vendors to do work for them, they also are held responsible for diversity and making sure those businesses are owned by minorities, women, people of color, LGBT-led businesses. Unfortunately, no canine-owned businesses, but we'll work on that. Veteran-owned businesses and so on. And so that's what I did at Disney, and that's also what I did at NBC Universal. So again, giving a voice to the disenfranchised and underserved, and giving them the opportunity to compete for business. It wasn't charity, it wasn't a handout, but just an open door to compete. And even though, if you would have asked me a year or two ago, if I would be running a professional sports team, I would have said you're crazy. However, if you would have asked me a year or two ago, would you be a platform for the empowerment of women and people of color, I would have said hell yeah. And that's exactly what I'm doing now, but it just happens to be at a professional sports team. So that's kind of my roundabout journey. I think I was born into diversity. My mom is white. My dad's black. My mom's first husband was Mexican. So I have 3 older half-sisters that are Mexican and white. One of them married a black guy, so my nieces and nephews are mixed. At one point, one of my sisters got married to a woman, so we just have literally, and then she remarried to another guy. He has some Asian children. We're just the UN. In my family, I was born this way, and so here I am trying to give every single population a voice, and so it's exciting.
Wow.
I love what I do every day.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's really inspiring for people that work with students to know that the work that they do really does make a difference. And although you don't always see the fruits of your labor as a higher ed professional, to know people like yourselves that go on to use those skill sets, I think that's just awesome. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just solidified and legitimized everything that we do, right? Your journey began with the skills you learned outside the classroom on a lot of levels.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Thank you for saying that out loud and in public and in a way that's being recorded. So that's great.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yes, yes. So what can new professional women do to succeed as a leader in male-dominated industries like sports? So our young women are graduating in May. May will be here before we know it, and they see someone like yourself, and they're like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So what can you...
So what my advice always is first of all, over-prepare. You have to walk into a room and you have to know just as much, if not more, as the person you're working with. So, for instance, when I go in and I pitch one of these corporations, I need to really understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So I have my team and myself, we do a bunch of research to understand, what it is about the sparks that will help them meet their goals and about their specific business. So I need to know as much about their business as I know about mine. And then that then gives me confidence. And I think that's a lot of times what women oftentimes lack. I think we know the answer, and sometimes we're in a room and we're the only woman in the room or we're the only minority in the room. And so because we just automatically assume that everybody else in that room knows more than us, we often don't speak up. And so, I always say, know your effect on a room when you walk into it. So you got to kind of know the room. And then, but don't be afraid to be bold. Now, that doesn't mean you're cocky. That doesn't mean you're, just taking over a meeting. That doesn't mean that you're speaking out of turn. But just don't be afraid to speak up. And when you're confident and you're prepared, then your voice can be heard. But you have to, unfortunately, they're not going to ask your opinion all the time. They're not going to come to you and say, no, really, Christine, you haven't said anything today. Please tell me your thoughts. A lot of times they're going to try to get on without you saying anything. And that's okay, because when you do speak, make sure that it's powerful. So be confident and be bold, and don't settle for ordinary. I think women should continue to strive to be extraordinary in everything that they do, whether it's their personal lives or their professional lives. But when you strive for that, that means that that competitive nature has to come out. That's what men have innately. And of course, we're dealing with a lot of stereotypes. So there are exceptions to every rule, but men are competitive. They want to beat the next person, man, woman, child, they don't care. It's funny, even Irvin. And that's, I think, one of the things that when Mr. Johnson hired me, both times, because there was 2 times that he did, he saw that competitive nature in me. And what I've always told him is, I haven't always been the smartest person in the room, but no one's going to outwork me because I'm not competitive. And it's not even that I'm competing with other people. I'm competing with myself. And so I constantly am trying to, okay, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? And he's exactly the same. We would come in with a win and we'd be like, sir, we just booked a $10 million client, and he's like, oh, that's great. Okay, what's next? Okay, can we celebrate that win? No, okay, maybe not. Okay, what's next? Got it. We're on to the next one. And so that literally has translated to the sparks as well. So I was sharing with both Joshua and Roseanne that, we launched this major campaign yesterday, and we're trying to break the world record, break the WNBA record and actually the world record of attendance at a game this season, but it's all around women's empowerment and wellness. And so my team will come and they'll be like, oh, we launched and we have 20,000 views or 60,000 views. And I was like, that's great. How many of those actually bought tickets? And they're like, but it was just the first day. I'm like, let's go. Let's go. We got to keep going. So be bold, be prepared, but be confident and competitive. And that's what we as women have to constantly do. But yet don't lose sight of yourself. Know who you are and figure out how you ingest I have to figure out how I adjust Christine into that. So, yeah, I'm going to be as competitive as Irvin, but I'm not Irvin. I'm Christine, and so I'm going to put my nuance to it. And I'm a woman, and so I'm going to walk in my heels because that's just what I like. I like my heels. We were having a shoe conversation previously. I love shoes, so that's what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it in my heels. I'm still going to be as competitive. So that's me putting my nuance into it. Not every woman likes heels. Whatever it is that you are, bring that to the table. And so many times it's accreted in such an amazing way that people don't see it coming. And I'll just end with one on that note with one piece, because one of my favorite books is by Franz Johansson, and it's called The Medici Effect. And it talks about how innovation comes at the intersection of diversity. And what that means is if the same people are doing the same things and they came from the same place and they're all trying to solve the same problem, they're never going to be the most innovative or the fastest to market or bring the most innovative program to light. That's why, having people that grew up on the East Coast, in the Bronx, and in Cali, in Compton, but then even, in Beverly Hills, if everybody comes together and puts their collective brains together, we're all going to look at things in a different way. So we as women have to come and bring that perception and that perspective to the table, so that way we can help people see things in a different way and find a more innovative way to do things.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That really resonates with me. I mentor a lot of young Latino women, and they're always telling me, I don't know how to sell myself. I wasn't raised that way. I'm just too humble for that. And I'm like, you need to leave the humility at the door when it comes to the interview, for example. You want to be the person who's number one, who knows the best, who's over-prepared. So that's great advice. Thank you.
One thing I figured out, because I hated selling. I was like, I hate being a salesperson. I don't want to sell. I hate asking for money. Oh, no. And then what I found out about myself is if it's something that I'm passionate about and I just speak very passionately about it, then I'm actually selling it. And so I think if we teach our young women that just be passionate and confident about you and what it is you're about and what it is you're trying to do, then you're selling yourself without having to sell yourself. So I'm not going to go in there and say, I'm the best person for this job. I'm going to sit here and tell you my story, and I'm going to sit here and tell you why I love what I do so much, and innately you're going to see that I'm the best person for the job.
Yes, amen. I recently finished a book titled Executive Presence by Sylvia Ann Hewlett, and she and her research team conducted a national survey that involved almost 4,000 college-educated professionals and 268 senior executives. And then on top of that, she did 40 focus groups. And the findings showed that executive presence rests on 3 pillars: gravitas, which is how you act; communication, which is how you speak; and appearance, which is how you look. And more specifically, the 268 senior execs, they rated them in that order. 67% rated gravitas as the top pillar, communication was 28%, and appearance 5%. And though appearance was rated as the top pillar by only 5% of the execs, it's not to be underestimated, right? It's still on the top 3. So with all of that said, I was hoping if you could share with us how you feel about this concept of gravitas, communication, and appearance, and have they made a difference in your rise to the top?
Definitely. I think, gravitas, when we talk about that, that's the same, that confidence when you walk into a room, right? And if I walk in and I'm very quiet and I'm meek and I'm not, I'm not strong and confident. It's funny, I have a mentor, and half the time he is so confident about every single thing he says. And then I'll get into a debate with him. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not true. And he's like, no, it's true. No, it's, and so we will literally debate for 5 minutes. And then finally, when I have shown him every single fact to tell him, he's like, yep, you're right, that's not true. But he was so bold about it and confident about it that at any other person, he would have won that argument. And that's how you act, right? So if you truly believe something, you could probably convince somebody that it is not a snowstorm outside in New York right now, even though I'm looking at the craziness that is the snowstorm in New York right now. But if I was confident, no, it is actually sunny and gorgeous. And, and so that how you act is really, really important. and I mentioned earlier, know your effect when you walk into a room. I think I would be interested to see the gender breakdown of this, because I think for women, unfortunately, appearance is going to affect things in a different way. And I think that it's still, there's still a big double standard around that. And I think that you have to constantly be your best self. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to conform, but depending on your industry, sometimes you do have to be a different version of yourself in how you look, depending on what your career goals are. I'm not saying anybody should, again, not be themselves and bring themselves to the workplace, but just be your most polished self. As you, when you show up, I think that definitely helps people take you more seriously when it comes to women and appearance in the workplace. It definitely cannot be overlooked, because hypothetically, if you, and it applies for men too. If this gentleman is walking in and he seems to know what he's talking about and he communicates really well, but you look at him and you're like, wow, his suit is dirty, it's wrinkled, it's, you're like, okay, it's not completely put together. So if somebody walked into an interview with me, male, female, and whatever, and that was the case, I would say, okay, sounds good. On paper looks good. I'm kind of convinced, but yet if I gave you a presentation, can I put you in front of the world, in front of my audience, and know that everything's going to be put together, or even will that reflect in how you present in your work? So if you're telling me a great story, and you seem to know what you're talking about, but if I asked you to put a deck together, does this mean because you didn't iron your shirt today, you may not check for grammatical errors? Unfortunately, hiring managers look at those types of things and make sure that it's an entire package. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's the physical how you look, although we can't just shine over that. Unfortunately, there's very few people of color, and definitely women of color, in executive level positions, so that definitely weighs in. And the nuances of, my hair is naturally curly, so you see all those pictures, most of my hair is straight. It's extremely curly, and I flip back and forth all the time because I love my curls, but I also love my hair straight. But I actually think about that depending on the audience that I'm talking to, and that's kind of the nature of where we are. Hopefully we can change that a little bit more, and I think there's a lot more campaigns out there helping women to embrace exactly their curves and their curls and everything that's natural about us women of color, which I'm loving and embracing. But it's definitely a transition, and you have to kind of figure out what that effect is when you walk in that room. So I'm 5'9". I tend to wear 4 to 5 inch heels. So when I walk in the room, I tend to tower over people. And sometimes that can be intimidating. So I want to make sure that I'm confident and bold, but I don't intimidate either, because you need to also be approachable. And especially as a woman, you have to be approachable but powerful. There's a lot of nuances. And so just know yourself, know your room, and take all of those three things into account.
So that's why we're so busy. It's a lot of work to do all of this. Oh, my goodness.
It really is.
It's a lot of work. What about sexism in the workplace? Any words of wisdom? There's a lot of talk, particularly around the athletic world, about this, and I was wondering if you can provide some insight and information, some inside information, if you will, on this piece of the puzzle for our young women.
It exists. It's there. We can't get around it. I was literally having a heated debate about the double standards that are in the workplace for men and women, and professional achievement, and, all the extra things that women are, I would say, graded on, or that are evaluated for women's growth professionally, that people wouldn't think twice about, that have nothing to do with their jobs. So it exists. And, we're continuing to, I think it's the responsibility of the women like myself and those who have come before me and those that come after me to continue to blaze trails and try to battle it. I think every woman has to figure out how she battles it on her own, like in her own way. I think for me, I have, it's funny, I often say that I speak fluent chick and half fluent dude. And to be in sports, you kind of have to. Like, I need to be able to be that translator. I'm often that woman, that's the only, and I think I talked about this at Circle of Change, Josh, but I'm like the only woman in that private members-only cigar bar sitting around the table, and most women don't even know that these places exist, much less want to go into a cigar bar where cigar smoke is going to invade my hair. Back to the hair again. Sorry, I always go back to the hair. And I have to deal with the smoke in my hair again and all that. But had I not been in that room, then I would have not gotten that deal done or had that opportunity, right? So now, how did I get in that room? I got in that room because I was able to connect with somebody and form a relationship with somebody that that we became friends, and then got into that room. But it's just it's a nuance, and it's there, and we have to continue to battle it. And unfortunately, it's getting slightly, well, I don't even know if it's getting slightly better. I think we're becoming more aware of it. Our numbers in senior positions, I think, have actually taken a slight flip, a slight downturn these days, and especially in corporate America, and definitely in the sports industry. It's small, but I mean, we're making strides. I mean, if you look at the 3 professional basketball organizations in Los Angeles, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Sparks, they're all run by women. All the team presidents are women. That's Jeannie Buss, Gillian Tucker, and myself, which is powerful. But at the same time, we still have a lot of work to do. If you look at ownership, because I think the discussion, I spoke to a group of high school boys recently, and I didn't even talk about them striving for athletics. I talked about you guys should be striving to not only be a team president, but be owners of the teams themselves. And I think we just need to change the narrative for women as well. We need to strive for ownership positions. Yeah, that is the difference between Jeannie and I. She's team president, but she's also part owner, which is fantastic, and we need more of that in sports, because then you'll have more women decision makers throughout the organization.
Thank you for that. Josh has a couple more questions, but there is a question from one of the audience members that speaks to what you were talking about, so I kind of want to follow up with Jamie Paparato's question from Coastal Carolina University. How can one uphold a professional image if they do not conform to the gender binaries perpetuated by the business world?
Great question, right? Jamie. Great question. I think it's just the most polished version of you, and that's what I was talking about. So, let's say hypothetically, a woman has dreads and, or has natural hair, or, is not your typical polished corporate person, right? It's just, you have to just be the best version of you and show up as the most polished version of you. You're right, it doesn't, but just know that there are people that are going to, unfortunately, take that into consideration. But that's just when you hit them over the head with all of that brilliant knowledge that you have. And I always, sports analogy, scoreboard, I put points on the board. So, at the end of the day, am I putting points on the board? Am I putting, am I driving revenue to the bottom line? Or top line and profit to the bottom line? Deliver. And after a while, the discussion of one's professional image, by all means, is less of a conversation. It's always going to be a conversation, especially in corporate America and in the business world. So just take that into consideration. I think it's just knowing what you're up against, and then over-preparing and being the best you that you can be. And if that's a nonconformist you, then that's fine. Just know what you're up against and over-deliver on what it is that you are there to do. And then also bring them into the conversation. I think sometimes it's hard. I think I picked the 2 industries that are probably the least diverse in the world, between entertainment and sports. I don't know. But they're both white, male-dominated worlds. And so every time I got a new job, I'd have to have the conversation about my hair. Oh, it's curly. Oh, did it grow? How is your hair so long? Oh, I just straightened it. No, it's actually, you know what I mean? But having that conversation, bringing them into the conversation, not getting frustrated, helps them understand our culture, my culture, and me a little bit more. And then it becomes less, I think more and more we can change the conversation and then change what those perpetuated, what professional image looks like, right? So the fact that and I'm going to keep referencing our We Are campaign because I think it's phenomenal. But if you go to lasparks.com/weare, you're going to see like the diversity that's on my staff. And one of the women on my team, a young African American, wears her hair just big, bold, and natural, and I love it. And that's why I wanted to make sure that she was showcased in that video, so that way people can see that we are going to shift what this quote unquote professional image is, and every different cultural background or nuance of who it is we are can be represented and be considered professional. It's going to take a minute, and know, Jamie, that it's going to take a minute, and there's going to be some ignorance, and there's going to be some people that judge, and some people that may not give you an opportunity or may not give that individual an opportunity. But learn from it, and just keep over-delivering. And I think that's how we just continue to try to battle it.
Thank you, Christine, and Amy, for that question.
Yeah, great question, Jamie.
Awesome. I guess my question was in regards to leadership, and I know we talked about this at the Circle of Change Leadership Conference. As far as when students are looking to be hired, for your organization, you look a lot at the numbers and can they look at numbers and analyze numbers and stuff like that. But based on your circles of influence and the people that you talk to within leadership positions from a variety of different industries, particularly entertainment and sports, what are the specific skills that you think are most valuable for students to develop, within their leadership organizations or within their campus communities?
So I'm a big proponent of social capital, and what I mean by that is really nurturing and cultivating your network. And more, Irvin hired me for my network the first time. It wasn't, I had never been in business development before when he hired me the first time to come and sell for him at the end of the day and develop business for him. But he knew that I had a Rolodex full of decision makers. And he knew that I was able to present well, and that I was able to relate to a lot of different people in a lot of different rooms. So for those soft-skilled reasons, he hired me as a vice president the first time and then brought me back as an executive vice president the second time. And much to, part of what I did, on paper, I'm not qualified, quote unquote, to run a professional sports team, right? But I do have the qualifications to sell sponsorships. I do have the qualifications to market to a broad and diverse constituency, to sell tickets and to market an organization. And he saw that in me. So the soft skills of being able to, go into an all-white boardroom or into the depths of our communities and be able to relate and understand the needs of both and be able to draw solutions that meet the needs of both are a huge soft skill. And that really does come from the stuff that student leaders do and hone in college. I know that's where I began my journey, being able to do that. And even just to be able to present and speak publicly. One of my mentors who I credit for getting me involved in so many of these organizations, his name is Mandla Kaise, and he leads New World Education, and he literally does empowerment programs across the country now and replicates a lot of the stuff we did at UCLA. Amazing man in the field of education and student leadership. But I credit him to this day because he used to just push me out in front of a group of people, of my peers, while I was a college student and make me speak about something without any notice whatsoever. And I would be freaked out. And I'm like, really? And hi. Oh, hello. Welcome. You know what I mean? And immediately. And that is something that to this day I still have to utilize. And Irvin is notorious for that. He'll be like, all right, hey, come on, you're joining me with this meeting as we're walking into the meeting. I don't know who was in the meeting. I don't know what it was about, but I'm like, okay, let's go. And then just being able to listen and adapt and adjust and to whomever that is and whatever the subject matter is. So those soft skills are so critical to success. It shows resourcefulness. It shows adaptability. There's a lot of people that if you give them a checklist, okay, this is your job description. You need to do X, Y, and Z. Go crunch that number, and then anyone can do that. But if you say, hey, this is the end goal, I don't care how you get there, but we need to get that. And they are able to creatively solve that problem. And that's a problem that I don't have to spend time solving, because if I have to come in and help you spend time solving, then I don't need you. So I need problem solving. I need quick on your feet. I need adaptability. I need relatability. And those are some really good soft skills that I think student leadership organizations and activities in college really help people do outside of help people learn outside the classroom.
Awesome. I know this is off of our notes, but I was going to ask you: is there any particular employee or intern that you can remember that really just was incredible through your journey, through your experiences within your professional career? Is there anyone that just stands out to you that was like, wow, that person was just incredible?
Yeah, I mean, recently there's been a couple. I mean, in this journey for us at the Sparks, we're literally completely refreshing and rebranding the organization. And so the one of the best hires I've made thus far, and don't tell her this because then I'm going to have to go and give her a raise, but her name is Alma Angeles, and she's the director of corporate partnerships for me. And so as I was focused on other departments that needed more work, she came in, hit the ground running. She took on tasks that were far outside, so she knew that she needed a beautiful deck and marketing materials to be able to sell her sponsorships. And so she just took it upon herself to recreate them. And oftentimes, and I always like this, I hire people. One of the questions in the interview I always say is, do you ask for permission or do you ask for forgiveness? And she is definitely one that asks for forgiveness. She'll go. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, let me rein you in. But I would much prefer that she goes and I rein her in just a little bit because I trust her judgment, than her constantly saying, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I do that? Hey, I need to do this, because that just takes time away from everything else that I have to do. But that's taking initiative, and that proactivity, that, again, problem solving and being creative and adaptive has just been phenomenal and has served my organization so well, and it's been amazing. So she's definitely one of my new hires that and helped us focus on the Latino community even more than in a more authentic, incredible way as we needed to, being a Los Angeles sports team. And so she had come from the soccer world. And so helped refer. We have 3 folks that came over from Chivas USA, and my office was already loud and noisy, and now it's loud and noisy in every dialect of Spanish that there is, which I love. So it's been phenomenal. She's added value in so many different ways, and to that point, and to what we were talking about, Roseanne, is that's where all of our different cultures really bring dollars to the table. And I mean, diversity is a huge industry for a reason. I mean, our populations in these different, in our different communities are growing, and we have money to spend. Corporations want that money. So you as a Latino or you as an African American bring the authenticity of how to approach that community in a way in which other people can't, and that means dollars to the top line and the bottom line.
Right.
Awesome. Hello? Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say there's diversity in dollar bills. They're all green.
Exactly.
Very true. A topic that I think is really important and we refer to leadership is the topic of resilience. I've discovered that resilience is I think it's required in order to be a leader. I also think that it's also sometimes a precursor to something great. And so my question to you was, what has been a challenge in your life that you were able to overcome or be resilient in, and what did you do in order to do that?
Good question. It's funny. Perseverance has always been something that I have cherished, especially in my college career, to be quite honest with you. So, and I think that it's something that we need to continue to push for our students. I was in one of the most competitive majors at UCLA, but I was also working 30 to 40 hours a week as I worked my way through school, all the while doing all this organizing. And so being able to persevere and just have that resiliency to know that I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I know I'm going to get through this challenging time in my life. I actually spoke just last night, my days are running together, last night, to there's a class that's being offered for young African-American freshmen, women at UCLA, and so spoke with them. And, that same adversity and question came up, and what do you do to get through? And, I think you understand what's going on. I think you take a moment to have, whatever issue, to kind of deal with it. But the next day or the next time, you just kind of have to, sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it, right? And what that does is it gives you a moment to get your strength back until you're ready to really deal with it, but learn from it. So what is it about that particular adversity, that moment, and what is it that you control about that moment? How is it that you could change something? There's some things that we're going to hit, that's going to hit us, whether it's sexism or discrimination or, all of these different things that we face that we have no control over, but there are things that we do have control over. And I think, making sure that we understand what we have control over and trying not too much to deal with, especially as women, because sometimes we deal with the emotion a lot more and the adversity, but, fake it till you make it till you're strong enough to get through, but know you're going to get through. Just at the end of the day, I've always known that I was going to get through. And there's actually an Ernie Barnes print and that I've had for years, even before I even knew I was going to work for the WNBA. And it's actually a woman dunking, which is phenomenal. But the bottom of it is it's perseverance, and it says no matter how difficult the goal, the strength of resiliency or resiliency over weakness will gain success. And that has always been on my wall in my offices for years now, because perseverance is something that I've always had to live by. You're going to get 9 no's, but that 10th yes will make up for all of those 9 no's. And they're just setting you up to be stronger and to be more successful. And I think you just have to look at everything as a lesson.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Really quickly, just want to let people know, for those that are listening, if you have any questions, you guys can feel free to type in your questions right now for the Q&A, and then we'll definitely, start responding and asking Christine the different questions. And while, people are gathering their questions, I guess the final question that we wanted to ask you, were there any mistakes that you made in your journey, that you look back on, and I don't like to say mistakes, or maybe things you did wrong, but you were able to improve on to continue to move forward?
Of course not, Joshua. It was perfect. Hello. I mean, come on.
yeah. Right. True.
Please. Yeah. Every day. Every day. I think, one of the things I always say is, everyone's going to have a lot of balls that they have to juggle. You just have to know which ones are rubber and which ones are glass. So you know which ones you can drop and which ones you can't. So, sometimes that whole ask for forgiveness versus permission, sometimes you might be a little too bold, and so there's been a couple of times when I shot an email to so-and-so and probably should have checked with this person over here first and got their blessing. And when it came back around, and as soon as, you see that name in your inbox, you're like, damn, I probably should have chatted with so-and-so first. And you own it. I'm sorry, sir. You're right. I apologize. My fault. No excuses. I've learned, and you just own it immediately. You know that you're going to take a couple blows and just, put your shoulders back, and all right, stretch your neck a little bit. Okay, here it comes. Got it. All right. Learned that lesson. Hurt a little bit. Felt like I went a couple rounds with Tyson, but that's okay. I'm stronger for it now, right? So I think it's, and a lot of times you have that instinct. There's that gut, like, I should probably do this first. Go with that. Over communication is always it can't hurt you. It can't hurt you. So I think sometimes I'm a driver, so I'm constantly, okay, go, trying to get things done. In fact, in the past, another area that I had to work on was I would shoot an email out and I'd be like, Joshua, I really need that thing. Bam. And now I got, you're too much of a driver and not warm and approachable, and people would come in my office. I'm typing as they're talking to me, and I'm like, yep, sure, no problem. So just do X, Y, and Z. I'm still typing, haven't looked up them, that type of thing. So now, before that email, I'll type my email, Joshua, I really need it, and I'll stop and say, hi, Josh. Hey, how's the family? have circle of change coming. Awesome.
Right.
Hey, can you send me that thing now, please? Thank you. Hey, have a good day. But it does, and I joke, I embellish a little bit, but, you know, it goes back to more authentic relationships and making sure that people understand how much you respect and appreciate them. Because I do, and you can't let the task and the goal get in the way of those relationships, because it'll come and bite you in your butt later. Because Josh was like, all she does is hit me when she needs something. She never asks about me, and that type of thing. And it's actually something that we're teaching as far as culture within our staff is how do we make sure that every single person, every single every client, every fan that walks into Staples Center feels important. And we talk about creating magical moments. And we're taking a kind of a note out of, our owner's handbook. And because if you've ever heard Irvin speak or seen him speak, he's charming and he's endearing and he's personable and he's approachable, and everybody feels like they know him. And so what we say is we kind of took the acronym of MAGIC and we said, make eye contact, acknowledge people by name, greet them with a smile, inquire about them and their family, and then create wow and magical moments. And so I myself have to constantly remind myself to do that, because, again, my staff will walk in and I'm trying to do 18 million things, and they could be standing there in tears because they had a death in the family, and I didn't take the moment to turn and look and see that they're having that moment. So now and if I am in the middle of something important, I'll say, just give me 10 seconds, let me finish this, and then I turn and I look and give them my full attention. So those are some of the mistakes that I've made along the way that I've kind of learned from and adjusted, but it's still a challenge. I still have to work on that every day.
Can you repeat that again, the magic? I love that. Make eye contact, acknowledge.
Sure.
That was awesome.
Acknowledge by name, greet with a smile, inquire about me and my family, and then the C is create wow and magical moments.
Create wow and magical. Love that. That was just awesome. That's all I wanted. That was awesome. And inquire about family and friends. Awesome. Yeah. I loved it. There is a question up. There's a question from Jamie again. And her question is, when you experience a failure, what is that internal dialogue that you say to yourself to persevere?
Jamie, you are asking some really good questions. Okay. So I am probably hardest on myself than anybody can be on me. So there's definitely an internal dialogue in the beginning, like, oh, that was so stupid. Why did you do that? Oh, what are you thinking? Oh, and especially right now, because I'm in this new role, and you constantly feel like you have to prove yourself, or at least I feel to myself I have to prove myself. So there is I would be lying if I said, oh, I just immediately move on and look in the mirror and say, you're amazing and awesome. No, that doesn't happen. I definitely have kind of that moment where I acknowledge and kind of, I beat myself up just a little bit, but I think it's good, because I think that it allows you to remain humble. It's important to be bold and confident, but I think you have to remain humble, because that way you keep learning. And so once I do that, then the next is, okay, it's the beat myself up phase. Then the next phase is, okay, how can I fix this and so it doesn't happen the next time? And then it's okay, do I need to do any damage control and make sure I fixed anything that came out of that particular failure or whatever. But at the end of the day, I also look back and say, okay, yeah, it was a mistake, but it was a rubber ball. And I have prepared well enough to know that I didn't drop a glass ball, or I didn't fail completely. And I think also having positive people around you to encourage you and say, look, yeah, no, it's hard. Maybe that wasn't a win, but guess what? You had 15 other wins this year. So it's okay. You don't have to be perfect all the time, kind of thing. So, figure out what your process is in your head, so you don't completely, wallow in it, and you get yourself out of whatever negativity, because that negative energy can really become toxic. And so you can't stay in that negative space for a long period of time. And a lot of times your circle around you will help get you out of that. So you want to make sure you have positive people around you, and not those who are like, yeah, you suck. What were you thinking? You don't want those people around you.
Awesome. We have another question from Amanda Huet, and her question is, How do you manage your time to serve in so many capacities in addition to your work and personal life? How do you prioritize to maintain a sense of balance in your life?
Still working on that one, Amanda. My running joke in the office is, can somebody please clone me, because I need to be in 3 places at one time. And I think it's just a matter of, so I have a 4-year-old son, and I am a single mom now. His father spends a lot of time with him as well, but just the nuances and logistics, and when you do have him, and so I'm not afraid to ask for help. So that helps me balance things. From a time management perspective, I try to knock out the quick things really fast. So if I can just knock out a few really fast things and I don't have to think about too much, and get those out of the way, and in those moments where, like, I'm waiting in line, or I'm, sitting there idle, and I could shoot a couple of responses, a couple of emails. Delegation is important. I think so many times, especially for those of us that run organizations and have such a high level of high standard of excellence, it's hard for us to delegate because we're afraid that, it won't be done like we wanted it done. But we have to learn to delegate. That empowers and helps other people learn and blazes trails for the people that come behind us. So I really had to learn how to delegate and then be there to, catch them if they were going to fall, but give them the opportunity to fly. So that's kind of how I'm able to balance, and it's important to me. I have to, I go to Haiti every year just as a personal charity, completely unrelated to any of the jobs I've ever had. And it helps ground me. It helps me stay motivated. It helps me stay focused. They're so impoverished there, and they have so little that I come back, just feeling so blessed with everything that we have, and just so motivated to try to continue to do more good in the world. I know my limits. So, for instance, I know that I'm pushing my limit now. So this week was insane with the launch of our campaign. Literally, I'm going to figure out what day it is. So Tuesday night and Wednesday night, I had both nights each. I had 4 hours of sleep. And then I've been doing speaking engagements and getting the word out about this campaign. And then I was on the red eye last night to New York today, and I knew that today I had to slow it down. Like, I couldn't pack my schedule today. I knew I had 1 or 2 things that I was definitely going to do, but I knew that I was reaching my limits. And then I knew that there was also an opportunity for me to potentially stay over the weekend and try to accomplish some more work priorities. But I wanted to get home to my guy because I needed to see my little man to reinvigorate me. So you have to kind of know when you're running on, when that fuel tank is getting low, you have to have something to replenish it and know your limits. And so that's how I'm kind of able to maintain and get that sense of balance, because it's important to me to be a great daughter and a great sister and a great mom and a great friend and a great community steward and a great woman leader and a great COO. All of those things are really important to me. And so I have to figure out how to balance them all so I can be the best me, because if I am too empty and too spent, then I'm going to be poor in all of those. So, and being able to say no, there's a lot of opportunities to be on boards and things like that. And I always say I never want to be the flaky board member. And so if it's too much, I say, okay, no, maybe, when I turn off of this board, maybe I'll do that board. Or, when I'm done with this organization, then maybe I'll join that organization. So just, you got to know your limits. You got to be able to say no, but also don't be afraid to ask for help.
I think the asking for help and saying no, those are the 2 biggest things that we need to remember, particularly as women, as we kind of juggle all these different versions of ourselves. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a struggle for me. And I think the more we stand up and say, yep, no, I'm there for you. Like, Josh, I don't think there's ever been a time when I'm like, no, Josh, I can't do it, right? Because I want to be that person for you. And then you want to be that person. And then after a while, you're like, okay, I'm the only person. And I'm not saying that's the case with Josh, but, when most of us and all of you on the phone probably have experienced this, as anyone who's willing to step up and be a leader, that means you're always willing to step up and be a leader. And so then people go to you and you're that go-to, and it's 20% of the people doing all of the work. And then that's when you as leaders in your organizations get burnt out. That's when your student leaders get burnt out. So we have to help engage other people and teach people to say no and, you know, hey, I can't, but I think so-and-so over there has some great potential. Let's bring them in.
That's awesome. I love it.
So we're coming to the end, unfortunately. I think I can have this conversation much longer. And maybe we can have
Seriously.
Shopping. But I wanted, in closing, if you wouldn't mind, you know, telling us what's next, because once you're a president, where do you go from there?
Ooh, girl, I'm just trying to get through the season. I don't know. No, it's funny because when they bought they bought the team in February. I came in March for working for Magic, and then our training camp last year started in April. So literally, we had no off season. It was the most crazy, chaotic season you could ever imagine. And like, whew, we got through that season, and you know, our owners, championship Hall of Famers, you know, all business moguls, they're like, yeah, but we didn't win the championship. And we're like, really? Everybody was surprised that we even had a team. Like, and so now we're like, okay, we're setting a record this year. Okay, well, how are we going to top it next year? So my mind's already thinking about how we can top that. I think for right now, I'm focused on just this task at hand and you know, how I can be the best COO there is. Who knows? Maybe it's a bigger team, a different team. I'm not sure. Right now, I'm really just focused on making sure that we bring the W, as we call it, the WNBA, starts getting the same respect, you know, and profitability and attention that our brother organization does. And, you know, it really goes back to women's equality, you know, equal pay. We could go on and on. That's a whole nother topic. But I think right now I'm just really focused on this piece and continuing to do better in this job. I don't know. We'll see. As you can see, I keep my options open and love the new challenges and opportunities. So who knows what's next for me after this? But I know it'll always be grounded in empowerment and giving a voice to those that need it.
Well, thank you so much for doing that for the voices that need it. Thank you for doing it for sports. I know I'm a New York girl, and I may lose my key to the city, but a new fan, a new convert to LA, which is unheard of in my house.
Love it. Yeah, it's funny. Our New York Liberty is
team.
No, anytime anyone's in LA, please hit me up during the summer. We'd love to host you guys at a game. But my counterpart over here, Kristen, she leads the New York Liberty, and she actually also leads the D-League team here as well. She's a powerhouse, and you guys should definitely get to know her at some point too. She and I are partners in crime and are trying to shake things up as much as humanly possible. So, but yeah, I love converting people over. I mean, you know, the Liberty's all right, but you know, we are LA. That's our theme this year. So no one's going to be able to match the swag of LA. Sorry, that's just who we are, and we say it proudly and boldly.
Okay. We're going to give it to you because you're a special guest today, and you're in New York, braving the weather.
Thank you.
It is it's leadership like yourself that will get the fans and will get the converts and will also provide some inspiration and role modeling for the young women that we on this call are constantly trying to work with and inspire and motivate and help them get to, you know, what we say around here, to cross the stage at graduation. And that when they hear about other women like yourself, they see the inspiration, they see the light at the end of the tunnel is really what I want to say. So with that, I really want to thank you so much for your time. I think this has been the most fun I've had on one of these webinars. And I hope to one day meet you in person. Yes. Maybe I'll go up the block and throw a snowball at your hotel window.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. And to everybody that called in, I mean, our time is the most valuable thing that we have. And, you know, to all the participants that called in, I so appreciate you guys taking a moment to listen. But more importantly, the work that you're doing, you really are creating our leaders of tomorrow. And thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so to those on the call, thank you so much for your time and attention. I remind you again that the New Orleans conference is in a couple of weeks, so I hope to see you all there, and that our April 13th webinar is at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on emotionally intelligent leadership. And we didn't talk about that here, but it's quite obvious to me that Christine Simmons is a great example or case study around emotional intelligence. So I'll keep that as kind of the commercial for our next webinar, and we can think back to this conversation and look for examples of emotional intelligence in leadership. So thank you all. Stay warm if you happen to be living anywhere but California and Florida. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions for future webinars, please do not hesitate to email me. My email is right there, and I've been tweeting out this afternoon, so you can always find me on social media. Thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon. Safe travels, whether you're going an hour away or 5 minutes away. Thank you.
Thank you.